These are very special limit expressions that we'll talk about a lot more later. It actually has to do with the definition you'll do later, but I wanted to make sure you understood the skill now. If I actually take delta x, and delta x is one thing, it's not a delta times an x, it really represents the change in x, which is a separate variable in how we're going to treat this than just an x. So don't split your delta x away from each other. But let's say it's approaching 0, so our change in x is headed towards 0. Then I'd have x plus 0 squared is just x squared minus x squared, which is 0 over 0. So again, it looks like I have a removable discontinuity. I'm going to tell you now, the same will be true for all three problems. So we're going to have 0 over 0, which means that I need to remove the common factor, and the common factor will be a delta x. To do that, these are just straight algebra. They look pretty intimidating because of all the symbols, but they're just straight algebra, so I'm going to actually do this part first. I'm going to square x plus delta x, and you can do FOIL if you like, but I actually like to stack mine to multiply, like back when you're in elementary school. So it's x plus delta x times x plus delta x. So delta x times delta x is a delta x squared. Then I do delta x times x, and you write it as x delta x. If you do delta x, it gets a little confusing. Okay, then I'm done with this one. I now go over here, x times delta x, that's another x delta x, and notice I moved over one because I'm combining like terms. And then x times x is an x squared. Draw my line and add all of these up. So I have x squared plus 2x delta x, that's a really bad delta x, plus delta x squared. That is what this is multiplied. So I'm going to write my limit out. This is the limit as delta x approaches 0. And instead of having x plus delta x squared, I'm going to write what that's equivalent to. And I'm just going to finish this up. Minus x squared over a delta x. Okay, if you look at the expression now, my negative x squared and my positive x squared cancel out. Everything that's left has a delta x in it, so I'm going to factor out one delta x from the numerator, which is going to be my common factor. I'm left with a 2x, and then there's still one delta x there over my delta x. If you look now, these delta x's cancel out, and I'm taking the limit as delta x approaches 0 of 2x plus delta x. Now this delta x is approaching 0, so that leaves me with 2x. And it's absolutely fine to end up with variables when you do these expressions. Okay, so for the next one, it looks more complicated, but the algebra is no harder than the one before. So this will be the limit as delta x goes to 0. And this first part is the same exact expression as this. It hasn't changed just because it's in a different problem. So this will be x squared plus 2x delta x plus delta x squared. And then I'm going to distribute my negative 2. So negative 2x minus 2 delta x plus 1. Then I'm going to distribute this negative. So minus x squared plus 2x minus 1 all over delta x. Okay, now some of this has to cancel out. So if you look at it, this x squared cancels out with this negative x squared. Negative 2x, a positive 2x. Positive 1, negative 1. So we canceled out a lot of it, and everything that's left, if you look in the numerator, everything that's left has at least one delta x in it, so I'm going to factor that out. This is the limit as delta x approaches 0. I'm going to factor out one delta x. I'm left with a 2x plus, there's 2 right now, but I'm factoring 1 out, a delta x minus 2 over delta x. You can now see my common factor, and I'm left with the limit as delta x approaches 0, I've canceled it out, of 2x plus delta x minus 2. Now I evaluate my limit. Delta x is approaching 0, so I'm going to say that's going to 0, and this equals 2x minus 2. And that is the answer. One more. This will equal the limit as delta x approaches 0. And again, I have an x plus delta x squared. That's 6 times x squared plus 2x delta x plus delta x squared minus 6x squared all over delta x. And I'm going to distribute my 6. So this equals the limit as delta x approaches 0 of 6x squared plus 12x delta x plus 6 delta x squared minus a 6x squared all over delta x. So you can see some of the algebra, I mean there's a lot of algebra, but there's nothing complicated. If you look at this 6x squared and this negative 6x squared, they cancel out, and everything in the numerator still has a delta x. So this should equal the limit as delta x approaches 0. I'm going to factor out a delta x. I'm left with 12x plus 6 delta x over delta x. My delta x's cancel out. My final limit is, as delta x goes to 0, of 12x plus 6 delta x. And delta x goes to 0, so 6 times 0, that all goes to 0, and I'm left with 12x as the answer to my limit.